I watched the extended highlights on the Iowa State game. So pretty much every play of the game just cut down. And certainly when you look at the scoreboard and you look at what the offense produced and what the defense limited, it's not anything that I don't think is difficult to understand. They were playing a team that wanted to bring down the score, take the air out of the ball, and that certainly was what happened. So the achievements on defense have to be disclaimed that it was against an Iowa State offense that has struggled mightily against anybody this year. And at the same time, also understand that the Iowa State defense ranks at the very top of the Big 12 almost across the board. So what were your impressions of a game that included, of course, the highlight of the day was the fake field goal for the touchdown?
It was a little bit of a weird game, Mark. I think the first thing from a positivity standpoint that you look at and say with all due respect to Iowa State, Oklahoma did a fairly decent job on the defensive side of the ball, forced three interceptions. One of them was nearly returned for a touchdown late in the game. But you take that with the caveat that you mentioned, Mark, that this is probably the least effective offensive team in the Big 12 at this point. Statistically, coming into the game, they were, and then obviously that proved out to be true. I think Iowa State. I haven't watched them a ton this year. I think Decker's made some interesting decisions in that game on a couple of plays. One was I think the interception by Danny Stutzman was a really good play, a good read by him, but the other ones were just forced passes, I think, in the coverage. But I think you take the small wins from a defensive perspective, Mark, as you would get them, meaning you didn't have any busts. You covered pretty well without any pass interference penalties, which has been the norm throughout the year. They tackled pretty well in space. Again, they held Iowa State's running game in check for majority of the game, and I think I like the other thing that you like from a positivity perspective, just kind of looking at the game overall, was the fact that as the fourth quarter was coming and Iowa State cut it to a 7-point game, and then Oklahoma quickly had a 3 and out, and then Iowa State got the ball. You kind of felt like that game was headed to overtime, but they got some stops, and then they certainly got that interception late that made that a two-score game. So yeah, I think you've got, at this point in the season, you're obviously at where Oklahoma is this year. You're not necessarily worried about style points. You're worried about wins and losses and how you get that win, versus suffering that loss is really kind of inconsequential to the final score, right? But you said it correctly. I think this was a game that went about the way that you would expect it to go. I didn't feel like Oklahoma would get enough possessions to be able to probably get this game into the 30s or the 40s, where they probably would have liked to have gotten or wanted to. But Iowa State's the best defense in the Big 12 statistically, and Oklahoma, particularly in the first half, they ran the ball pretty successfully. I think they had somewhere in the neighborhood of 130, 140 yards rushing in the first half. Not quite as good in the second half, particularly on the offensive side, rushing or either side, rushing or passing. But it builds some confidence, I think, for this team that's sorely in need of confidence, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. To only give up those 13 points, the 2 field goals and the touchdown was very positive. You would have liked to have put some more points on the board, but with the limiting of the possessions, and Oklahoma wasn't super successful really in the second half. Despite one that one long touchdown pass to Jalil Farouk. But a win's a win, and you got 2 wins, in a row, and you're back in, somewhere in the middle of the pack of the Big 12, lower half, but still middle of the pack of the Big 12 that seems to be really controlled by TCU at this point, and there's a few others that are trying to get up there, but it sets up a really big matchup for obviously Oklahoma and Baylor, 2 teams that aren't where either one would expected them to be. And I kind of chuckled about this, and as my dad and I, and a couple of friends were talking about this game, who would have expected the Oklahoma Baylor, number one, 2 teams that are unranked coming into this game, and this is a 2 p.m. local kickoff time on ESPN Plus. I mean, it just kind of shows how crazy the college football seasons can be. That no one would no. I mean, most people probably thought this was going to be a top 10 matchup at some point. That would, which would maybe decide which one, Oklahoma or Baylor, would have the inside track at that top spot in the Big 12. But as it is, they're playing for just the opportunity to go bowling. Really, I mean, there's an outside chance that I think either one of them could get into the mix, but more than likely these guys will be, either one of these teams will be on the outside looking in.